Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Roll Call featuring Kayla. Hello, Kayla.
Hi.
So we've been planning this episode for a little bit. We were waiting for the most recent arc of Isles to conclude, and at least this part of the arc, I feel like the tournament and Hazard's Hollow are very closely connected. But like this arc in particular was super, super important for Nalfein. So we thought that the end of this would be a great episode to kind of do a reflection on Nalfein as a character. So I like to kind of start from the beginning because I know we've talked about it, but I really love the creative process and learning kind of how people make characters and kind of what the inspiration was. So, going back very early on, what was the initial inspiration for Nalfian and why a fighter? Why maybe like the weapons he used? Just
Hmm.
kind of what were your ideas going into it?
Uh, so it's really funny when I think about early days in Nalfein because he was something else. Um, but like my inspiration for him, I was a big nerd, and I still am a big nerd, and I was reading a lot of when I was in middle school, I read my first Forgotten Realms book, and I was reading The Legend of Dritz by R.A. Salvatore series, like one of the biggest like Wizards of the Coast Forgotten Realms series. And there is a character whose name is Nalfein, but he's a Duerden, not a Banier. And he dies in the first chapter. And I was like, wow, that's rough, buddy.
Rough.
Rough. And so I fell in love with that book series, and it made me fall in love with fantasy and all that jazz and like medieval stuff. And like then Skyrim came out, and then my life got taken over by that. Um, but when I wanted to make my first like D&D character that would stick out to me, I thought of Nalfian. I was like, well, that's a really cool character. What happens if he didn't die in the first book? And like, what would his story look like if he kept going? Like this drow from the Underdark who didn't want to be there. What does his story look like? And so I just kind of took the name and some spicy moments from the book series and just kind of made my own version of Nalfian. And then he has grown significantly from that point. But that's kind of where he started.
Okay. So when Nalfein was introduced, and I'm probably getting my wires crossed because Isle started like 2 years ago to where I don't remember all the details of like what exactly
Hmm.
everyone had learned. So Nalfein, what level did Isle start at? Was it just level 1 or was it level 2?
I think we started at level 3.
You started at level 3. Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was level 3.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely don't remember. So like
I
that's
think it was level
interesting
3.
then cuz obviously I don't think Bonsheen had been introduced before Nalfein as a character had been introduced.
No, I don't
Right.
think so either.
So was that something that like you and Joe discussed like a lot about like that Echo Knight and having that like reflection, like the echo and kind of having that bit of kind of Dark One magic from Malice kind of being a part of it and just like that relationship with the Bonsheen. Like I always thought that was really interesting when I was like, oh shoot, that's why Nalfian's an
Yeah.
Echo Knight. Oh my god, or like that's why these Bonsheen can do this. And I don't remember what came first, but like how much did you and Joe kind of like talk about that?
So Nalfian, so when I made Nalfian, when I said I wanted to be a fighter, I wanted there to be like some type of like connection to the Underdark that he could never quite shake. And so we kind of workshopped what the Echo Knight would be in terms of this game. And like and as you guys learn, like the Echo is pulled from another reality. So it's not just a clone or just an echo or a shadow, and he is literally another Nalfian from another time and place. And so that idea came first. And the more we kind of developed the 13, and then when Malice became like a fully fledged character, she was always a character in Nalfian's backstory, and she was a very significant character, but she wasn't in my mind like a 13 until Joe said everybody make an evil character that's a 13, and I'm
Uh,
like, oh my god, this would be the perfect 13, the perfect foil to Nalfian.
yeah.
And then the idea of, okay, but what if Malice, the rest of her sons, had the same ability? But he found a way to kind of break the hold she had on him to utilize his ability a little bit more freely. Because like that's a gift from the Dark One, actually. Malice being able to infuse her sons with this ability of Echo Knights and making copies of themselves. That's a gift the Dark One gave Malice. So again, that kind of came after the fact, and the more we developed Malice as a person, the more Banshin came about. And then more details about how they work. So I don't know if you were there for this episode, but the first time we encountered them, there's like this unspoken rule that if you bow, you're challenging one of them to a duel, and they basically ignore everybody else and they go one on one with just you. And that's kind of like, I don't know, a Banshin thing like that they do.
I
If you
vaguely
I don't know if you
remember that.
remember
I
that.
vaguely remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember the circumstances, but I do remember that being a discussion that came up, or an
Yeah.
element of the story. Yes.
So little stuff like that developed the more we talked about Malice and how her connection to the Dark One, how strong it was and what powers she had. So yeah.
Do you think that it's just like, I mean, talking going on that bowing aspect you just talked about, is that just like,
Mhm.
do you think that's just Baynir pride at that point, that Malice is just so infused that it's just like, at it, like, you should be able to cut through legions. Like, if someone challenges you
Mhm.
to a duel, destroy them, wipe them into dust, because anything else, it's like, if you can't do this, you might as well just be dead. Like, is that why
Yeah,
they almost
no,
honor that?
absolutely. Yeah, like Malice is such a bitch. She's such a prideful bitch, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And she wants her family to be the most like this false honor and this like really sickly pride. So I absolutely can see that. It just kind of stems from her, oh, show everyone how formal you are, challenge them to a duel, but they don't follow their own rules anyway. Pretty sure that same episode they like interfered on Nalfein's and the other one's duel anyway, so
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember. Plus, also, anytime you fight a Banshee, it's automatically 2-on-1. So anytime they accept
yes.
a duel, it's like not really a fair
There's no
fight.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, so nah. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So looking back at, the early on at Nalfein, and then looking back to what just happened in last Saturday's episode, if you had to pick one word, or like an idea or a phrase that kind of defines Nalfein's like theme or his journey, like what would you kind of associate with him and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I'm gonna steal something from Evrand. The whole "would you be a butterfly or a moth"
Um,
question.
well, you'd be stealing from yourself, so I guess that's
Okay.
okay.
Technically, I think it was Nick who like originally came up with this phrase, and then Yursa just ran with it.
Oh, that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think for Nalfian, the idea of like metamorphosis is such a big word that I think encapsulates who he is. He went from this really, I don't want to say like sleazy guy because he wasn't really sleazy. He was just a really depressed guy who was, don't make that face. He wasn't sleazy.
It that
Okay.
actually correlates. Well, it's you'll see by my next question why I made that face. It's funny.
Okay.
No, it's
Okay.
funny. I swear.
Okay. He was kind of like this like ladies man, I'll put it that way, who was secretly really depressed. He had a very big hole. And the analogy I used, he had it like the cup of life. He had a hole in his cup because of what happened to his wife and kid. And he was filling it with things he thought would fix it, right? Whether that was women, it was coin, it was drink, it was fighting for money because he thought that's all he was good at. Then to have people come into his life to care for him and make him realize that he's worth more and he doesn't need these materialistic things to have a full cup in life again. He went through this really big change of I don't want to waste my life drinking it away, gambling it away, not being in real relationships. And I think it took the party, it took seeing Twig and their relationship for him to really kind of look inside himself and change into, I guess, like one of the best knights that he can possibly be. So metamorphosis, I think, is the best word for Nalfi, and he's undergone so much change, and he's definitely not where I thought he'd be, and I'm so happy that he is this knight. He's chivalrous, he's honorable, he basically gave up drinking. He doesn't gamble. He doesn't do any of those things he used to. He still maintains his personality, I think. I think he's pretty clever. I think he's one of the funniest people ever. Kayla's not. Nalvian is. I think he's still clever. I still think he has that charm without it being like arrogance, if that makes sense.
Yes, there's a big difference between the two, and Nalfian does not come across as arrogant, in my opinion.
No, thank you. Because that was, and I don't know if this is something that you'll ask, but I'll be the first to admit playing a character. I feel like Yrsa. is so much more like me, and Nalfian is so much not like me. So playing a character who's supposed to be super high charisma, super clever, is challenging because I don't think I'm clever as a person, but I'm like Nalfian is. He'd be on it. So that's been kind of a fun thing to play somebody who goes from arrogant clever to, wise clever, if that makes sense.
Oh, I think that makes total sense. And I totally get that feeling because, like, one of my biggest fears with Gideon, because I didn't want to do like that trope of like he's the smartest person in the room and he knows it and like he talks down to
Mm-hmm.
people and he's like, oh, well, I read, so I know so much, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and I was so scared in the beginning of Evrand because I'm sure I bothered you guys so many times and I was like, does he come across as like a know-it-all? Like, does he seem obnoxious? Like, I was trying so hard to avoid that because I hate that trope with
Yeah.
wizards, like especially wizards. I'm sorry, like, but I've played with
Right.
so many wizards who they got that high intelligence and they just do not care what anyone else thinks. So
Right.
yeah, I always get having that fear of like I'm trying to portray it this way, but does it come across as that, but
Mm-hmm.
the negative version of it? So,
Absolutely.
and yeah, and I mean, yeah, I can't really remember early days of Isles of Iverian, but no, I don't think arrogant is a word that people would really associate with Nalfian. So I think you've
Yeah,
done
no,
well
at
on
least
that.
not anymore. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Going back to early days of Nalfian though, and I'm switching my question because you kind of answered the question I
Sorry.
was going to ask. No, it's fine. No, it's fine. Save some time. So, I do not remember the gentleman's name, but Nalfian's kind of manager, handler,
Oh man, yeah, that guy.
whom I
Joe?
really
I don't know.
liked.
That's a
I
Joe
I
question.
really liked him. I do not recall the gentleman's name, and I could have re-listened to that episode for this, but I decided I didn't want to. So, but you know who I'm talking about.
Al. Thank you, Joe. His
Just
name was
Al.
Al.
Okay.
I guess just Al.
All
I
right,
don't
that's fine.
remember.
Al, if Nalfian was to go back there and see Al and talk to Al, what do you think that relationship would look like now? Or what would Nalfian say to Al after everything that's happened?
That's funny. Because there's another character in Raven Rock that I kind of wanted Nalfian to go back and talk to at some point, but I'll talk about that later.
Ooh. Okay.
Um, I don't know. I think Nalfian would probably go and like because he's Nalfian, go and shake his hand and probably thank him because that relationship, like Al, even though he was basically, making money off of Nalfian, he was portrayed as caring, and like looking out for Nalfian. So he'd probably thank him for giving him a way to make money, to giving him something to put his mind on without drowning himself in drink. Was it the most honorable thing Nalfian could be doing? No. But like, I'd like to think Nalfian learned a lot from that experience and kind of grew from it. So weirdly enough, I think they would shake hands. Nalf would buy him a drink, and I don't think Al would believe Nalfian is a knight. I think he would laugh at first and be like, "You, I don't know about that guy." Um, but I think it'd be kind of a funny reunion.
I think it'd be interesting. I mean, going off of memory, I agree. I don't remember Al being a bad guy, like in the slightest. Like, did he come across as someone who, you know, was more concerned about himself than the greater good? Sure, but most people are concerned about themselves over the greater good. And it's just one of those things where he had a business, and I don't think he was taking advantage of like Nalfian's woes or sorrows. Like, I imagine he was just like, hey, you can
Yeah.
do this, we can both make some money, have a comfortable life. Let's kind of do this together. And I remember
Mhm.
like I can't remember what the context was, but I remember Nalfian gave him some money at one point,
Mhm.
and I remember Al like he kind of acted like he didn't want it, and I do you kind of remember what I'm talking about? I can't remember what the context of that exchange was.
I remember Nalfian giving him money, but I don't remember how he came across that money or why Nalfian was giving it up at that time. But I think it might have been Nalfian was leaving with the party. And so maybe to like substitute his funds for not dropping out of the fight that was coming up, I'm not really sure. Um but it'd be kind of funny to go back now and be like, here you go, and just like give him so much money because we have so much money. Um I don't know, that'd be an interesting place to revisit now that Nalfian is so different.
it's always interesting going back to where you started once a character has made like such drastic changes, and
Mm-hmm.
to think about where the party began versus where it is now. I mean, when you look at the Evrand party, even, and just like how
Yeah.
dramatically that has changed. Not like all the campaigns, obviously. Salamander
Mm-hmm.
Coast, they just reclaimed a kingdom. One of them's like literally a
Right.
queen now, so that's interesting. And then Twig's gonna have House Forester soon. Nalfean's gonna be Knight Commander. It's just always interesting
Yeah.
to see the
It's
journey.
crazy. It's been like 2 years, if not almost longer at this point, and there have been so many stops along the way. And unfortunately, and this kind of happens with D&D, there's been a lot of characters to kind of come and go. But I'm glad to see that it. I'm glad to see where we're at and the people who we have. Like, I wouldn't trade that for anything. So,
Well, as someone who came, thank you. I appreciate
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
I love Isles. But was a big fan of it from like episode one. It just came together so seamlessly. It was
Hmm.
crazy. Like very rarely do I see a group come together that well to where, just like, I mean, I joined. You know me. I've never joined a campaign from episode one except for Evrand. That's the only time I've made that exception.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
yeah,
think
like.
it helped because like River, Gemma, and I had been friends before Isles started.
Mhm.
And Joe kind of jumped in on a campaign with the three of us. That campaign came to an end, and then Joe was like, "Hey, what if I do this thing?" And then I think it helped that we had a pre-established relationship going into it. And then when you joined, we were like, "Yeah, we know Riot, get his ass in here." Same thing with Felicity. Like,
Yeah.
of course you like we already knew each other, so I think having such good friendships outside of the game helps the friendships inside the game too.
Yeah, definitely would agree with that. And just that comfort and familiarity with each other versus just like, I
Hmm.
don't know this person, I don't know you. Yeah.
And like I'm just saying, some of the shit Nalfian has said, I don't think I could say in real life. So I'm glad I can say it with people that don't be like, "Hey, yo, Caleb, that was wacky. Why'd you
Yo.
say that? Like, you sound dumb right now." So like I'm very happy to have a group of people who like let me play a character like this, and especially playing a male character as a female, and as I have a very nasally, high pitched voice. So I'm over here trying to portray this like really smooth talking guy who's like super cute and like a badass, and then there's me. So I'm just glad you guys have been like, "Kayla, you sound dumb, stop." So you have all been super
Me,
supportive, and I appreciate that.
me with literally all three of my characters, fucking Varnas, Talmaru, Morwen Dulski, and I mean, I'm the
Yeah.
closest to Yorick because Yorick's just a goofball most of the times, but
Yeah.
it's like fucking like Die Hard with a Vengeance Varnast, and then action movie star Morwen Dulski. No, I get it. Having that comfort and familiarity with people to where you're willing to kind of be vulnerable and kind of expose yourself with something new, like that, there's nothing really like that in D&D, and I think that's one of the really cool
Hmm.
things about D&D is just being able to push those bounds and those limits that you didn't kind of know you had placed on yourself almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So question, when like what would you say, was there any specific moment or maybe an arc, because I know that like Twig is a big reason why Nalfian changed to the extent that he has. But like, what was it about the relationship with Twig that made him realize that he didn't want to do what he was doing anymore, and he wanted to be
Mm.
more? Like, where was kind of that event where things kind of started to take a turn?
I think when we started getting more information on the Dowie ruins, and when we started finding the location of the ruins, and there was that moment where Twig started, because Gemma was really quiet at the beginning of the campaign when she was portraying Twig, because like she's this little kid surrounded by all these really wacky individuals and adventuring with them. But it was when like we were set out to find these artifacts, Twig had this connection, she was covered in these runes and she was really passionate about it, but she was almost like too afraid to step up. And I remember there was one moment where we were coming out of a cave or something, and the guards, I think we were in Raven Rock, the guards came out and just yelled at us. And like Nalfein and Grok were shitty because Twig was like crying, and Nalfein, I think, in that moment was like, absolutely not. We're not about to destroy this little girl's hopes and dreams because you guys are assholes. And I think that moment kind of triggered Nalfein's like fatherly instinct again and reignited that for him. And I think from that moment on, he started to talk to Twig a little bit more, discover the things that she was interested in, and he saw this very insecure, almost frightened little girl who was too afraid to kind of open up to the world. And he always used to call her Little Bird because he thought that she had the opportunity to be the most free person ever. And to him, birds are the most free creatures that you can be because you can just go wherever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, wow, this girl has so much potential. I want to be there for her so she can see the potential she has. So I think that moment kind of reawoke his fatherly instinct. They shared a moment at the theater together way back in Raven Rock, and I guess that also kind of pushed him in that direction. Um, Especially when they were on the ship with Heather Scott, there's a lot of bonding that happened. They were both really interested in fate and future, and like, you're always told you got to be this thing, but you really want to be something else. And I feel like Twig can really relate to that. She always thought she was had to fit inside this box, and there were consequences if you didn't. And Nalfian, same thing. He always thought he had to be something that he wasn't. And so I think, I don't know if there was like specific moments, but I feel like his father instinct was reawakened, and it really just drew him to her, and that just inspired him to want to be the best father he could be and the best man he could be. Oh yeah.
Was there? I mean, obviously, like Kayla would never take Twig or Gemma and be like, "Well, I care about this kid, and
My best
you."
dad ever mug.
Oh, nice, very nice.
Thank you.
I mean, but obviously, like Nalfian could never take Twig and be like, "Well, this is getting really dangerous. You shouldn't be a part of it because it's a D and
Mm-hmm.
D campaign. You can't tell
Yeah.
someone to go home." And so, like, how was I like how hard is that to balance for like Nalfian and Twig? Because like you and I had the other sort of father daughter relationship with Varnest
Mm-hmm.
and Alec, but Alec was
Mm-hmm.
like grown up. I mean, she wasn't
Yeah. She was
like
18.
yeah,
you
like
know.
she wasn't like yeah, like she was more or less an adult. Like she still had some things to learn, but like she was also a barbarian who would rip people in half. Like she could
Yeah.
kind of take care of herself. Not that Twig can't, but Twig playing like this much like very like kind of timid, very quiet. How did you kind of balance like Nalfian's gonna take care of her, but also like letting her have the freedom to kind of do and make all those things? Like, was how hard was that to kind of play? Like, how did you kind of figure
Um,
that out?
I think it was hard in the sense of Nalfia didn't want to step on Twig's toes and push her away, and then Kayla didn't want to impede on Gemma's fun, right?
Right.
So the small things that I would do, I would have like in combat, especially early on, not so much anymore because Twig is a fucking badass. She can take care of herself.
True.
But really early on, I would always cast my shadow or my echo, and it would either be me or my echo would constantly be in front of Twig's character at all times. Like he was always either near her or in front of her, so it would be targeted, or Nalfine would be targeted before Twig would be targeted. Um, Especially early on when we would interrogate people or we would like capture people, then if we had to kill them, Nalfine would ask Twig to leave the room or not even allow Twig to be in the same space when that would be happening, you know? Um, so those are like little things that Nalf would do to try to protect her from this stuff. But I think he also realized pretty early on, when he was a kid, I mean, he didn't have a choice but to be subjected to this kind of stuff. And if she's going to be a successful leader one day, she's got to see what it's actually like out here. So he really eased off of that because he realized she can take care of herself. And also, she needs this experience so when she takes her throne one day, she knows what she's talking about and people can't question her. She's been in the front lines, she's been in the face of combat, taking on the 13 and the Dark One. So no one can really be like, you don't know what you're talking about when she was there. So I feel like he's going to do that. He's going to continue to kind of always keep an eye out for her. he will always like shadow martyr the heck out of it in case something ever goes towards her. The most recent deal he made with the Green Lady, I think, is a great example of how he makes this deal with the Green Lady to protect Twig, but I don't think he's gonna tell Twig that he made that deal with her.
Like ever?
So I don't think until the time comes, to be honest with you. Like, I think that's something Twig. I kind of went back and forth with it. I was like, Nalfean's had problems with not telling Twig things in the past, and she gets really upset if he. Because to her, not telling her something is the same as lying. But this feels different. This feels like something that he does need to hold on to because I don't know, it's a sacrifice, and sometimes the best kind of sacrifices are the ones that don't need to be just put out there for everyone to see. If that makes sense. Like, I think it's a
Yeah.
personal thing that he wants to hold on to. So, did that answer the question? I feel like I talk a lot and I
No,
just go into
I
different
yeah, no,
directions.
I say,
Okay.
did you not hear how I phrased that question? I started it like 8 times, and then finally I was like,
Okay.
so what do you think? Yeah, there's no
Great.
format to this show. I could end it right now and we'd be fine, you know? Like, there's no
Okay.
consistency here. We're fine. We're just two
Yeah.
friends having fun talking about our campaign and our games. Like, that's what the whole thing's about. So do
Okay,
not
cool.
sweat
Because,
it.
well, yeah,
All
because
right.
I don't know. I just, I said this to Gemma last week. When I made that wish, I didn't tell Gemma about it when I wished for that, the Green Lady to watch over Twig, because I was like, oh, Gemma likes surprises. It'll be fine. Um, but it was important that I, like, she does. She tells me all the time. She's like, I
Sure.
love character surprise things. I'm like, okay, great. But I think it's a subtle way for Nalfein to still have that little bit of, like, fatherly protection without impeding on it too much.
Do you think he's going to tell anyone besides Twig, or is this just something he's only going to keep to himself?
I don't know yet.
Because I mean,
I
right
don't think I
now
have an answer yet.
it's just the Green Lady and Dickon that know. Because I think Dickon was
Yeah,
present during that whole thing.
yeah. Um, I don't know. You know, it's the same kind of thing Joe asked me yesterday, like, what do you want Nalfein to do now? Like, next session. I was like, I don't know. I think he just needs a chance to breathe, to just reflect a little bit. He's very happy. Like, Nalfein is very content, very happy. I don't think his head has ever been more clear and focused. But I really think that he put so much energy into this to make sure he did what was right, to win, to make Twig proud, to make his family and friends proud. Now he's like just exhausted. So I think he just wants to exist.
Fair.
So, yeah.
Me after every work week.
No, same. Same.
It's like Thanos. Now I rest. Look on a
Yeah,
grateful
yes.
universe.
Mm-hmm.
Every
And that's
week.
what he needs to do. Yeah.
So I don't know how much you and Joe kind of talked about the tournament or what was going to happen or directions that were going to go that like things were going to go in. I'm assuming most of what happened, if not everything in the tournament, was kind of a surprise for you. Is that
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yes, correct. I did not know what the hell to expect the entire time.
Did you think this many people were going to straight up die?
No.
Okay.
So listen, this has been one of my favorite arcs, and I was like, man, this is so much fun. It's like happy, like we're just doing stuff. I killed a dragon, like, and then it got real fucking dark real fast. Um, it was very Goblet of Fiery, very, I don't know, it was a lot of fun, but when stuff got real, I was like, whoa, you know? So no, I did not think that many people were gonna die at all.
So I mean, I guess kind of putting yourself into Nalfian's shoes compared to how he because I mean obviously Nalfian hoped to win because
Right.
why would you try if you didn't think you had a chance, you know?
Yeah.
So in his mind, I imagine that he was like, well, this is how it's going to go. This is how
Mm-hmm.
I'll feel when I win. So how does whatever he pictured compare to how he actually feels now that it's over?
So, and I've said this a few times to different people. Going into it, very nervous. Still kind of thinking he wasn't worthy enough to be here, blah, blah, blah. The very first event where you had to prove your honor to the Green Knight. that was the event that Nalfian immediately got it, and he was like, I understand what this whole tournament is about. Went to the Green Knight, shook his hand, watched some of the other knights do the exact opposite, or heard about them doing something that they should not have. And I think in that moment, Nalfian was like, you guys don't understand what it means to be a knight. You guys, what happened to all of this stuff we were supposed to be learning? What happened to the tenets? Yada, yada, yada. Nalfian decided in that moment, I'm going to redefine what it means to be a knight. We're going to follow these tenets. We're going to just be the best damn person that you can be. Sometimes you got to bend things to make it work, blah, 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 blah. Feeling super confident about himself. Feeling like, okay, he understands the tournament and he's going to do well and he's going to win. Then Dragu tried to poison Twig. That
Yes.
that Kayla was mad. Okay, Nalfian, oh my gosh, I'm so glad he stopped to think. I'm so glad everyone was like, bro, relax. Like, oh, there's a song by Rage Against the Machine. I could just kill a man. I was like, that was like blasted in my head the whole time. And I'm like, Nalfian, smoke this dude. But that was the day that he started to kind of start questioning himself all over again. So going to the Green Knight, he kind of had a little bit of a breakdown, and he's just like, it's so hard to do the right thing. Doing nothing feels helpless almost, right? The lack of action is so hard for an Alfian. And I think you got to learn an important lesson that night, that sometimes the best thing you can do is to bite your tongue, right? Kill them with kindness, because they'll get what's coming to them. And so he had a little bit of a realization that the path ahead of him is going to be way harder than he expected. This tournament is not going to be as easy as he expected it to be. The trials are not just what the Green Lady sets in front of him. The trial is everybody else here too, right? It's dealing with the other knights, dealing with the political schemes that are happening. This is also a part of the test. Can Nalfian do it? Can Nalfian put his pride aside, his protective nature aside, to do what's right? And I think he really understood after talking to the Green Knight, kind of leaving the chapel, and he's like, okay, now I get it. I thought I understood before, but now I understand. Then the crack in the sky happened. um, that wasn't fun. Then the next day, when we all had to fight ourselves, our echoes, and then Alfian watched a lot of his peers die to themselves. That was more dark and hard to watch than the people who died against the dragons, right? Because they're dragons, of course they're going to kill people. This felt very different. And I really liked at the end of it all, Yorick asked Nalfian, do you think all this killing was needless or worth, like, was it worth it? And I think I hold the same sentiment that Nalfian does, that it was a sacrifice. All those people, they knew what they were getting into when they got here. They knew what was on the line. They knew the risk. As a knight, you should know the risk that you're stepping into. And because this challenge wasn't just a challenge for Nalfian, it was a test for everybody there. This is what to expect when you take on the Dark One. His power and his influence is everywhere, and if you can't handle a tournament, you're not going to be able to handle what the Dark One is about to dish out. So, like, Nalfin was like, it sucks and it hurts, but it is a sacrifice, and it is an honor to have died to pave the way for others. If that makes sense.
100%. And then while you were saying that, two thoughts came into my head. So this
Yeah,
might seem like a very weird segue, but do you
that's
think
okay. Yeah.
do you think it was also harder to see Nalfine being killed by people's own shadows given his relationship with his own?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I
Yep.
mean, evil Shadow Nalf, whatever we called him originally, I don't
Yeah.
remember. But yeah,
Shadow
I
now.
mean
Yeah.
that whole thing was bad for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Nalfian needed help from like the party and also Old Man Nalfian, but like he was able to defeat his own shadow, and so I can only imagine how heartbreaking that was to just see so many people
Yeah.
fall to their own. Because in another reality, that's literally what happened to Nalfein. He didn't die. Obviously,
Yeah.
it was way worse what happened to Nalfein. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can only imagine what sort of, kind of PTSD or
PTSD.
memories,
Yeah.
memories came up
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah, not great.
Oh man. And then secondly, and this is not really so much of a question, it's just kind of a thought that entered my mind, but like I know we joked a long time ago when the Nalfian and Twig dynamic started, where you were like, I'm on both parts of it. Like I'm the daughter is Alec and now I'm the dad is Nalfian. And we talked
Uh-huh.
about like Varnes and Nalfian hanging out. And like the more I really think about their journeys, I actually think they're a lot more similar than I thought about until like this
Mhm.
moment. I think they kind of mirrored each other in weird ways where I think they both started off in not great spots. Like they both kind of came from a place of anger and not maybe looking at the world as like they should because of like things that had
Yeah.
happened to them. Varnas wanted to avenge his father, and so his whole thing was like slaying evil to an absurd degree, to where it kind of
Right.
became like an obsession. And Nalfian, obviously, he kind of retreated back into himself, into comfort and luxury in
Mhm.
order to fill that hole, like you said. And I think it's really cool that both of their journeys were kind of revolving, or like them kind of going back and realizing, like, we learned the wrong lesson at that time,
Yeah.
and this is what we should have learned. Because, like, early on, Varnas's like greatest achievements were very like military and killing and
Mhm.
putting people down. And then in the latter half of the campaign, it was like when he got to save Duncan, when there was
Right.
that warrior that the Dark One had corrupted that he was able to free after like hundreds of years of servitude. When
Right.
Varnast realized it's about saving people. It's not about killing the people, even if they deserve it. It's about saving those that need to be saved. And then we have Nalfian, who went on this whole journey, who went from, the butcher of, I can't remember the first city that we were in, that you guys were in,
Yeah, that place.
but yeah, the going from the butcher to now knight
Yeah.
commander of House Forrester. It's just interesting to see those two, maybe not necessarily like redemption stories, but just those growth stories
Yeah,
and how.
because they're not doing it for just themselves anymore, you know? And I think that's also something that connects them is they know that someone else is watching them,
Yeah,
and the choices that they make.
yeah,
So,
it just never really occurred to me until just now that I think those two are way more similar than I gave them credit for.
they be bros.
Yeah, they would be bros. All right, I have some questions from our friends.
Oh, yeah, Mia, give me them questions.
I'm gonna start with Felicity's because hers is probably gonna take the longest. It's a
Okay.
multi-parter.
Oh, yeah, give me them parts.
What is Nalfian's favorite memory with each of his party members?
Oh, spicy.
So that's why it's gonna be long, is because you have to come up with an answer for every single person.
Whoa. Okay, I have multiple, so I'm not gonna give all of them. With Lila, I think the moment where they were, I don't remember where they were, but when Lila was like explaining to Nalfian the constellations and why they became constellations and how they became
In
the constellations.
Hearthcrest at like the
The
planetarium.
observer, yeah,
Yeah, the
yes,
observatory, whatever we called it. I don't. Yeah, that
yeah, that
place.
place. um, I think that was one of my favorite moments with Lila and Nalfian because it was Lila who kind of opened the door for Nalfian to have a different kind of dream. And I don't think before then Nalfian really knew what his end game was. Like, this sounds really depressing, but like when he dies, I think Nalfian was really convinced he was not going anywhere special and he wasn't going to end up in a good place. Um, but I think it was Lila who convinced him to literally set his eyes for the stars. And it really established this kind of fun brotherly sister relationship between the two. And it really inspired Nalfian to want to be more. Um, and then, of course, transitioning that into her helping him with his poem that he wrote Twig. I just I think about that and I'm just like, if it wasn't for that conversation, I don't think Nalfian would have ever like, I want to be a star one day, you know? Um is it bad I want to say for Eurydice? I'll never forget the moment where she was like, maybe Nalfian shouldn't go over there because he's a drow, and drows are just so scary.
Everyone
I
was
feel
just like,
like
"Whoa, whoa, whoa!" There's
uh,
some.
Is it
There's some
cheating to say
internal bias there, Yuri. What the
that?
fuck?
uh, yeah. So that moment, 'cause I'll never forget it. There's also a moment where,
I'm
God, it
sorry,
was so
real quick.
yeah,
Have you've seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, right?
yes,
Oh my gosh, I always love that scene when Peter Parker's explaining the plan to sneak into like the science place. And at
yes.
one point, he's like, and then I'm going to head up to the head scientist. And he's sneaking up behind this like old Asian man. And
Mm-hmm.
then Miles is like, well, actually, it's that lady with the bike over there. Like I saw her in a video. And he's like, okay, gonna check my internal bias later, but I'm going to go
Mm,
after her. And I was like, hey,
Eurydice
we love
to
character
a T.
development. Good for you. Good for
Wow.
recognizing that was wrong. Sorry,
You know,
that made me think of that.
that's okay. More casual Nalfian racism. This is for Joe. When Nalfian and Grok were walking down the street and they were approached by guards, and the guards were like, "You guys stealing something tonight?" And I'm like, "Whoa, listen, we were walking down the streets." Anyway,
They were out
um,
breaking the law, though. That is important to address.
that's neither here nor there.
Okay, just
Um,
throwing that out there.
there's a moment with Eurydice really, really early on in the campaign where I feel like I can't remember exactly what happened because it was 2.5 years ago almost. She has this like super big breakdown, and obviously I think it has something to do with Asmodeus. And there's this image of Nalfian just kind of carrying her as she's sobbing into his arms, and like he had to take her all the way upstairs and just kind of like hold on to her and comfort her. And I just Nalfian as protector is such a cool thing for me. So I remember that moment because I think that was the first time that I tried to portray Nalfian as a hard ass really early on, but I think that was one of those like soft lad moments for him. Um that's my moment also for Grok, the racism moment. With with Twig, there's so many, but I think one that comes to mind is because Gem and I watched this really cheesy anime that I'm not going to say the name of because John will make fun of us. Um, and in this anime, there's a thing that Nalfein and Twig do where they write the symbol for fear on their hands and then they swallow it together. And so the first time Nalfein and Twig swallowed their fears together, that's not what it's called in the chat. The first time Nalfein and Twig swallowed their fears together, I thought that was really sweet. Um, I really loved Twig's birthday party and planning that for her. The knighting ceremony when Twig knighted him for the first time. Um, Sir Doofencockle, I know that's such a silly thing, and Nalfian gets so frustrated by it, but I think he secretly also loves it.
I think it's funny that
You
Sir
know?
Doofencockle has taken and Knight of Thorns hasn't. I thought
Yeah,
that was
what's up
so
with
cool
that?
when I came up with
It
that.
is. And we're gonna continue to push it because it is so cool.
This
I
Sir Nalfein
swear.
Forrester, the Knight of Thorns. Who? He just
You mean
won the.
Doofencockle? Yeah, no. Um,
Yorick is frustrated for Nalfein because he's like, I
thank
put
you.
work into that shit.
We're gonna bring it back. I
All right.
promise, because I think it's really badass. Um, yeah, like there's just so many moments. There's so many small moments with Twig that I think are beautiful, and just when she was crying after the Hearthcrest crest was it? No, wherever Nalfian the the big battle. Where did that take place at? I should know this.
Which big battle?
Right. The one where Nalfian was literally battling his shadow.
Oh, I
Can't think of
do.
it. It was called
Weren't you guys kind
that
of
place.
traveling mid when
Yeah,
that
especially
happened? Like, I don't think
Highland
you.
Pass. Thank you, Joe. Highland Pass.
Oh.
Um, that moment was so beautiful because in the middle of that big fight where Nalfian was literally fighting his shadow, his echo, um, Twig was crying and like sobbing because she was so afraid for everybody, but so afraid for Nalfian. And like when he was able to finally break free and go to her and comfort her, that moment was also really special to me because it kind of continued to solidify their relationship. Um, Yorick, I'm not. I mean, I've said this from the beginning since you joined. I was so happy for Nalfian to have another dude bro. Okay, like it was beautiful for a while for him to have all these different relationships with all these female characters because he's never had a healthy, other than his wife and his daughter,
Yeah.
he's never really had a healthy female relationship in his life. But then to have a brother sister thing with Lila, Eurydice and Nalfein, and then Twig and Nalfein. Like, it was such a nice thing for him. But it's nice to have that, like, brotherly camaraderie with them. And I feel like Nalfein and Yorick have so many good moments where they may be like small, like, yeah, man, we're gonna like double team, we got this, and they're gonna do their cool tag team
Yeah,
action.
hell yeah.
But Yorick has always been the one to kind of come to Nalfein with some of these bigger like thoughts. Like, what does it mean to be a knight? When Nalfein asks Yorick, what does it mean to be a high hunter to you? It's just even this most recent. How do you feel with all these people dying? He's always asking Nalfein the questions that I don't think other people think about to ask him. So I know it's not a moment,
Because
but like I think that's who
that
Yorick is to
absolutely is.
Nalf.
Yeah, that absolutely counts. That I really wanted Yorick to ask that question because he wanted to hear Nalfian give a response. And in truth, Yorick wasn't looking for anything specific. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the thing he wanted to make sure Nalfian knew was that, like, he wanted to hear that Nalfian knew that, like, what happened, despite the fact that you are the winner, is not your fault.
Right.
Like, you winning did not cause anyone else to do this. Like, you didn't trip anyone on the way here. Like, you didn't get
Right.
into anyone's head and sabotage them. And I think that's kind of what York wanted to make sure was that, like, you know, that the deaths weren't because he didn't think they were needless. He wanted to make sure that Nalfian didn't think so either.
Yeah.
Because, like, he could totally see how that's something that Nalfian could carry, especially after what happened with Dickon.
Yeah.
And just like,
Absolutely.
yeah, we carry things too much,
Mm-hmm.
and I've actually talked to a few people about this. I don't think I mentioned this to you, but like I remember I talked to a therapist once, and he was
Mm-hmm.
like, people like to think they're bottomless pits, but they're not. They're jars. And he was like, and if you keep putting everything inside of you, it's going to spill out into other avenues of your life, and you might not even recognize it, but it will spill out. And
Oh,
so
that's
I
spicy.
Yeah, I know, and I've never
Yeah.
forgotten that. And it's one of those things where I think Yorick wanted to make sure it's like, hey, don't internalize this. Like, don't let this cause issues for you down the road. Like, you performed
Yeah.
well, you performed admirably, you saved everyone you could in that last round, which no one died in that last round. No
Yeah.
one died in that last round.
I think Nalf needed to hear that, because like I said, he's gonna spend the next few sessions kind of decompressing. So
Yeah.
it is good for him to have heard that.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm glad you caught up on that because it was yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yorick wasn't asking because he wanted an answer. He
No,
wanted to make
yeah,
sure that Nalfian had an answer for it
for sure.
because sitting on shit is not healthy, as we
No,
know.
yeah.
I will say I think the best Nalfian Yorick moment is when Yorick just chucked him at the angel like over the space
Yes.
pit and got the nat 20 to
Because
where he
we
just
had talked
landed.
about that,
Yeah.
like, jokingly, but then when it actually happened, Nalf's like, just throw me. Just get
And
me in there.
Nat 20, just
Yeah.
the dice gods
Yeah.
demanded. They were like, this is going to be cool. Because originally you were only going to
Really
like hit the
cool.
ledge and it was going to take like your movement to get
Yeah.
up or something. Then Nat 20 Joe was like, shit, yeah, he just throws you right on top there. Like, you can just use all of your
That's
actions to
right.
attack or whatever. It was awesome. But yeah, I love them in combat together. I think they're very
Mm-hmm.
fun. That segues into. Oh, wait, well, hang on. Yeah, that was everyone, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I have my own question. Um,
Go ahead.
if Yorick and Nalfian were to fight, who would win and why?
Why would you ask such a question?
Because it's fun. They're pros. I mean, they've totally talked about like, hey, shut up, I'll beat your ass.
Listen, I'ma just put it out there. I low key think Nalfian is pretty OP. I'm not even gonna lie. He
Mhm.
does stupid damage. And when he can like blender mode, I think when I level up again and I get another action eventually, like I think I can damn near hit almost 10 times in one go if I'm like expending everything.
Mhm.
Let's say I hit all those times. Let's say I roll super well. That's a big chunk of damage. However, Yorick has more magical means than Nalfian does. So I personally feel like it'd be a pretty even fight. And I think
100%.
Nalfian
I
would
think it
win.
would be very close.
It would. I still think
I
Nalfian would win.
I think my money would also go on Nalfian. Because
Yeah.
I think that I think if Yorick got some, I think if the dice didn't go well for Nalfian, I think the fight would turn for Nalfian very
Oh,
quickly.
absolutely.
Because Yorick
Absolutely.
has a lot of options, like you said. He has his fear,
Mhm.
he has a lot of his
Yeah.
AoE stuff, and as we've seen, like when Yorick gets someone frightened, he just starts smashing their head in. There's very
Yeah.
little they can do about it.
And those smites, like you're like you got stuff on your side
Yeah,
that yeah.
but if I had, but also like with the Echo, I think it would be a
Mhm.
close fight. But I think like
I do too.
I think at like 6 out of 10 fights, Nalfian would win. I think it would be
Yeah.
close, but
Right.
I think I
And
would
it could
side
go
with
a
him.
different way on a better day, I
Oh yeah,
agree.
I mean that's what D&D is the dice roll. But I think like if I just literally looked at like what are their options, like Yorick has the options to where I think it kind of pulls him up, and also just
Yeah.
when he hits like a truck because he just drops smites. He's got you hexed. He's got the heart
Yeah.
of the void. Like there's a bunch of stuff, but Nalfian's got those numbers, like you said, to
Yeah.
where right
Yeah.
now with an action surge, I think that's 7 attacks in one turn.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
dumb. Plus, Unleash Incarnation, like that's a whole other thing. And I don't know about Twig. I don't know about Twig Felicity. I love her, but
what about Twig?
winning in a fight between all of us.
I mean, she'd probably just convince us to not attack her and then win, like right at
Touche.
the very end.
Yes. Yes.
She might be the
Agreed.
most likely to win.
Yeah.
Plus, if it's dark, she can just hide the entire time. We'll just never find her.
That's also true.
Yeah, I mean, being able to turn invisible, pretty strong.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
York has seen invisibility though, but I'm not sure how that correlates with Gloomstalker specific. Anyway, it's not important. Anywho, yeah, you know what? It's canon. Yorick and Nalfian have fought, and Nalfian has won 6 out of 10
Yeah,
times
heck
to where
yeah.
he won. It was
Nice.
close.
Yeah.
All right. Jumping to the next question. Let me pull up my notes. Okay, I have a few from River here.
Oh, yes.
1. Which NPC outside of the party interaction do you think has had the biggest impact on Nalfian during the campaign?
I like that question. Um, I would say Blossom. Um, because I think Blossom has knocked him off of his pedestal a few times in a very good way. I think Blossom reminded him to ground himself and what a healthy brother sister relationship looks like. So Blossom for sure.
Okay. Even after everything with Dickon, you'd put Blossom up there.
Oh shit, yeah, that's right.
I mean, I will
That's
say
right.
Dickens is much more recent, whereas Blossom was like
Yeah,
over a
that's why I
very
was trying to
long
like
period of
pull
time.
something. Yeah. I
I,
would
for the
say
record, I can't tell you you're wrong about who
no,
you think
I
Nalfine's had the
know.
biggest
But
interaction
like
on. I'm just
also
throwing it out there.
but also and I said this to Joe and I said this to you guys too. Like Dickon was like outside of the party, I don't think Nalfian's ever had a genuine friend. That he made on his own, that they liked each other, they helped each other out. And man, like I think that would mean the world to him. That like Nalfian can make friends without having to intimidate them, or you know what I mean? Like so I think I would put Dickon just like one slice above Blossom, but they're very close. So yeah, I think those two for sure. Like of course I love Danny and Trouble, but they're Danny and Trouble, you know what I mean? Like
Yes, I completely understand you. It requires
yeah.
no elaboration.
Yeah.
All right.
So good question.
Second question from River.
Yeah.
What physical difference in Nalfian's kit or appearance from beginning of the campaign to now is your favorite?
Hmm. Wait, read the question again.
Okay, I just switched tabs. Hang on.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. What physical difference in Nalfian's kit or appearance from beginning of the campaign to now is your favorite?
I mean, is this an answer? I love Nalfian's hair. It's undergone changes and it's always luxurious and beautiful. Um, because he's beautiful. Um,
Did I just hear
as
Joe
in
laugh
like
from the other room?
probably.
Okay.
Um, in terms of like kit and move set, one of the things that I love that he has the ability to do now is the Shadow Martyr ability. So if there is a another creature being targeted, in combat, big spells coming at somebody, he can just throw his echo in front of it and take that damage so the other person doesn't. He didn't like that was a more recent feature that he got, and I thought that was very fitting of
Very
Nalfein,
fitting.
putting himself in front of others. And Joe even worked with me to kind of like I had to make some sacrifices on other stuff as a fighter, but like that works as a charge now, so I have 3 charges of it rather than just using it once. But again, I think it fits Nalfein so much more than some of the other stuff he would have gotten. So that's a really big change that I think is really cool. Um, I don't know if you guys noticed, but ever noticed this of Nalfein. So as a drow, you do get some magic. You get fairy fire, you get darkness. There's something else that you get, but you get some like cantripy stuff. But I have never had Nalfein use magic ever. Yes, Dunamancy, that's not magic to me, if that makes sense. Like that's not magic to Nalfein. That's like different. I don't know how it's different, but in my brain into Nalfein's brain, it's not like it's not the same as casting fireball to him. Because I purposely made Nalfein not touch magic at all. Obviously he's a fighter, so it's not like I have much options to do it anyway, but like that was a conscious choice on my end where I didn't want Nalfein to be able to do magic at all. I don't want him to be able to cast spells. I want him to be able to rely on his blade and his blade alone. I know that sounds really edgelordy, but like it's true. Like that's his skill. That's what makes him strong is his talent with his sword. And because he's had such a negative relationship with magic because of Malice, I wanted him to not ever want to be a spellcaster. That's not changed, obviously, from now
Mm-hmm.
into the beginning of the campaign. Um, but that's just a fun fact about Nalfein that may not be apparent because as a fighter, you don't get much magic.
No, I never thought about that, so that's actually really interesting. That
Yeah,
thought had never occurred to me. That yeah, your inherent magic as a drow has never been used. So
no.
that's interesting.
Like he'll switch his vision, but like that's a
Yeah.
trait. That's not. So.
All right, I got 2 from Joe.
Oh yes.
Kayla, reflecting on Nalfien's journey throughout Isles, how do you feel about his growth and evolution as a character?
I think he is one of the most well-developed characters I've ever had the honor to play. Um, I love him so much. I look back often at moments where I'm just like, wow, that was really cool. I can't believe he said that. The first time you see Nalfian, the first few words out of his mouth was him like telling 2 girls to get out of his bed. To now being a knight of the realm, like that's wacky. Um, so I don't know. I think it's a beautiful, cool story thing, and I love him to pieces, and I'm excited to see how his story ends. I have a theory on how I think Nalfian's story is going to end, though.
I'm guessing one you're not going to share
I think Nalfian is going to die in the final battle.
because.
I think there have been subtle hints along the way that have pointed to Nalfian having to die in the final battle. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like there have been things that have been kind of dropped. There's always has to be a Baynir there. It has to be this specific moment, and like I don't know. I got a feeling in the pit of my stomach that he's gonna have to do something, and he's gonna end up having to die to do it. If that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think he's gonna die at the final battle. I don't want him to. I really, really don't. I think it'd be a beautiful moment if he does, but I think it's a big possibility. I
I
mean, it is
guess
for everybody, but
I guess we will see. Who knows? All right. Part 2 to Joe's question.
yes.
In what ways do you see parts of yourself in Nalfian? Are there any moments where your personal experiences deeply influenced his decisions or reactions?
Man. Like I said earlier, Nalfian's the most character that's not like me. I wish I could be cool. Maybe that's the part of Nalfian that I don't know, maybe that is where we're like I want to be cool so bad that like I put that into who Nalfian is. Um his sense of humor I think is very similar to mine. Um I think Nalfin can be very goofy at times. and I live as a goofy person.
Same.
But I think that's kind of where the similarities end. I think he's very passionate. He's very caring, and he thrives doing the things that he loves and surrounding himself with the people that he loves. And that is something that is very true for me. Nalfein is very family oriented, and I'm very family oriented. So I feel like, other than that, I mean, he's the coolest cat in town. I wish I could be him. But alas, here we are.
The coolest cat in town.
See, Nalfein
Not.
wouldn't say that shit, but I'll say it.
Let's say I haven't heard that one in a hot minute, but I like it.
Thank you.
All right. Gemma.
Oh god.
Clicked the wrong thing again. There we go. Nalfein has come a long way as a character, having started off at kind of rock bottom, back turned to the world. If current Nalf could speak to that past self, what would he say?
I think he would say it's not worth. No, I don't think he'd say that. I think he would say have patience. And he would give himself a hard time about that. But I think time is what Nalfein needed. I think he needed a lot of time to heal. So I think he would just say, be patient and it will come. Yeah. And I think he would also say, your time as a father is not over.
Interesting.
So yeah.
And I'm going to apologize now for that very beautiful answer to be followed by this question.
Okay. Who's this from?
Gemma.
Oh god, okay.
How's Tanir doing?
I fucking knew someone was gonna bring that up. Listen, Joe and I literally talked about him at dinner tonight, and I fucking said, "Can we just pretend Tanir doesn't exist?" Because I'm a terrible D&D player, and I fucking forget about him all the time. So Joe said, "No. Here's what we're gonna do. Danny and Trouble have adopted Tanir. He's been well taken care of." So I was like, "Thank God," because clearly Nalfein sucks at taking care of him. Listen, I don't know why Nalfein just never like. Nalfein's not a pet person. How about that? Okay, he just doesn't do pets. I hate you, Gemma. Why would you say that? I knew somebody was gonna bring it up. I'm grumpy about it.
I'm sorry, I had to. She never would have.
Fine.
She never would have forgiven me if I didn't ask the question.
I know. Listen, I'm just a bad player, dude. I don't know. I like that's the thing. I don't know why I didn't just click with that. I just did it. It's just Nalfein isn't pets.
The only thing that makes me sad about that is I really like Tanir's voice that Joe does, actually.
I know.
I don't know why. It just gets me every time. It's just like, hey, man, that's not cool. Or like, I can't do Joe's voice, but you know, whatever Tanir sounded like. I love him.
He's not disappearing forever. He will be addressed again. We talked about it today, so he hasn't been forgotten recently.
That's good. All right.
Thanks, Gemma.
I'm just the messenger, Kayla. Just remember that.
It's all good.
All right. Well, we're getting near the end here, Kayla.
Yay.
So you know what time it is?
Boo. Yeah, I don't take compliments well.
That's too fucking bad, because...
Okay.
The one thing is you can't leave before I do. That's the one format of this show that is consistent, so...
This disconnects.
All right. From Felicity. Kayla, you are so fun and talented. I want to hang out with you, like, all the time. You have said before that you want more Felicity in your life, but I for sure need more Kayla in mine. In D&D and outside, I'm always excited to spend time with you. That kind of friend you are is so rare, and I treasure the time we spend together. Thank you so much for being such an amazing friend to Haley, too. We both love you so much. I feel truly blessed that you are in my life.
I love Felicity so much. I do need more Felicity in my life. Thanks, Felicity. You're so kind to me.
We're gonna go out of order. We're gonna jump to Gemma, because why not? Kayla, you my bestie. The amount of thought and care you have placed into Nalfein is amazing. You took a man given a line in a book, it gave him such life and heart. If you were to ask me for a favorite moment, I couldn't tell you. There have been so many. Also, beautifully crafted on your end, even those you'd have no foresight to monologue alone about beforehand. Lol. Nalf, Nalf is truly such a special character, but that makes sense when he's played by such a special person. I
Ah, jeez.
I love you so much. I would swim across ocean to see ya. Shame then that neither of us live on the coast. Lol. Very Gemma
That's great.
message.
I love Gemma. It's funny because I'm sure I've said this before and we all do this, but I am a very big monologue in the car girly. Like I will constantly be monologuing as Nalfein or Yursa, like always. So
Same. If there's ever
great.
anything I want to talk about, I don't write it down, but I just like think about like the key points I want to say and practice saying it out loud to be like, does that make sense? Does that flow well?
Mm-hmm.
So I completely understand that. Jumping over to River. His character development is legitimately incredible, and it's very cool how Kayla has been able to make his whole arc work in such a way that it's such a drastic change from start to end, but has never felt unnatural or rushed. Nalfein has always felt so real and natural in all of his decisions and responses to things, and I admire Kayla and her RP and and character building skills for that.
Thank you, River. I appreciate.
All right, and now we got Joe. It's
Oh
long.
no. I'm sure.
He wrote in parentheses, "Oops, all cheese." Just for heads up
Oh,
there.
yeah. I might sneeze.
You need
Hold
a
on.
okay. You need a
Okay,
second.
nope. I'm good. Okay, I didn't sneeze.
All right. Kayla, I'm sorry. It's all cheese. I couldn't help myself. You're one of the most caring people I have ever met. Every day I spend with you is such a blessing, and I'm so happy to be married to one of the most beautiful people and souls on the planet. As a D&D player, you are always so ready to make moments and help others thrive in the game. The characters you make have inspired me and my storytelling in so many ways. I mean, look at Rian. He's just Nalf without a crazy fucking evil mom.
I wasn't gonna say it.
You have a real talent for storytelling and acting, one of the best, honestly. You always put others first, sometimes to your detriment, but it's always from a place of love, compassion, empathy, and caring. If there were more Kaylas in the world, not only would there be more cute crochet dolls, but the world would be a better place. You show me that even when I feel like my world is falling apart and I feel lost, there is always a lighthouse. And you always help me find my way. I love you, and I'm happy that I get to spend the rest of my life with you. Heart emoji.
It was pretty cheese, but it was really kind.
It was
I
beautiful
love you too.
cheese.
I love you too. It was beautiful cheese.
Well, I'm sure not to your surprise, but as we've learned on Roll Call, the relationships that we develop are, on a much more personal level than just playing a game leads to, which I think is the wonderful
Yeah.
thing about D&D. Just even when you're playing with a character, you're still playing with that person, and those emotions and those thoughts and everything that comes from it can always come from a very real place. And, however the story ends, you've created so many memories and experiences both in and around the game that there are people in your life that their world has just become better for having you in it. And I don't think that
Oh,
there's a better way to measure someone's life than that. So,
you guys are so nice to me. Thank you.
I
I appreciate it. I love everybody. Like this is my reason for getting through the day, you know? Like I I always make the joke that I don't have friends in real life because all my friends live so far away from me because they do. But I do have them in real life. You guys are just too fucking far. So I'm
true.
just happy that you guys, you know, keep me around. I'm weird, man. I'm like the strangest person you'll ever meet, but you guys have always been so welcoming and I'm so appreciative of it. So I love you guys.
Well, Kayla, I hate to pull the old switcheroo. I have one last thing for you. That wasn't the
Oh,
last
we
segment.
oh, okay.
There's something
Okay.
else.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
segment I'm bringing back from old roll
Oh.
calls.
Oh, yes. I am ready.
I asked Joe, how did I phrase it? One second. I said, Joe, can you give me any teases or hints or things that might come up for Nalfean's future? We could even do that
Mm.
one word hint if you're willing.
One word?
Well, He gave me a word and a sentence.
Okay.
I will give you the word.
And the sentence?
And yeah, yes, I meant the word
Okay.
first.
Okay, go for it.
The word secrets.
Okay, what's the phrase?
It's a question, actually.
Bitch, what? Okay.
What are you willing to sacrifice?
Bruh, I'm telling you, Nalfean's dying. Am I wrong? Does this not sound like death? Or
I wonder if
secrets anyway.
it's, is he gonna be willing to work with Malice against the Dark One?
No, it's not. It's not happening. I'm telling you. I don't know. I don't know. Here's what I think. I think it has to do with the note that Nalfian found in his bracers. We still have no idea who those people, what that is, or who that's from, or what that's about.
No idea. I love
I
lingering
don't like
mysteries when
this.
an arc ends. Don't you?
No.
Go to hell, Ryan. Cool.
Okay.
Well, so anyways, you have that to look forward to and think about, so have fun with that.
Yay.
I know
Okay.
you're so happy that I did that. You're welcome.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to be doing it to everyone else moving forward too. I missed that
Great.
segment.
Yeah.
At least you're not alone. Positive.
Yeah.
All right,
I accept
well,
my fate.
Kayla, thank you for coming on. As always, it's
Thanks for
been a
having me.
wonderful episode. Love talking with
Yay.
you. Love talking about Nalfein. And looking forward to doing this
Oh.
again soon.
Yay. Me too.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here and for listening and watching us. It's always a pleasure to do these with all the players on RWA. Tune in tomorrow, an hour earlier than usual for Isles of Iverion. Tune in on Tuesday for the continued adventures of the Salamander Coast, and next Wednesday for the Tales of Evrand. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch you next time. Woo!